Welcome to Nick on Knicks, where your boy N.I.C rants about the latest Knicks news. Wow. Talk about news. On the eve of training camp, I was actually planning to do this first episode on Monday after Media Day. First episode of season 2 of Nick on Knicks. And as I'm watching the Mets possibly piss their season away, I'm ruminating over that, about this umpire behind the plate who has no idea what a strike zone is. But anyway, as I'm watching that, I get a notification on my phone. I get a notification and it says New York Knicks acquire Karl Anthony Towns. It took the wind out of me. I could not believe that right now this is what I'm seeing just a couple days before we get this season started. And then you immediately know, if we're getting Karl Anthony Towns, there's no way around it. We're definitely giving up Julius Randle. If you watch this podcast, if you watch or listen to He Did This to Me, the weekly sports podcast by a father and son who happen to be mostly optimistic Jets, Mets, and Knicks fans, then you know I am the card-carrying president of the Julius Randle fan club. He came here when nobody else wanted to come here. Okay? The Knicks were a laughing stock. He then leveled up and turned himself into a 3-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA player. He got us back into a playoff team and was the beginning of making us a team that perennially would be in the playoffs, hopefully for, the next decade. He took the original hometown discount that led to us being able to acquire Brunson a few years later. Had some very unfortunate injuries, but as I always said, we were so used to getting players who used to be stars and were now on the downturn. We finally got a guy who came here and leveled up. And then we ended up doing that once again with Mr. Jalen Brunson. So I'm heartbroken when I see this. I'm absolutely heartbroken. I have said many times that I think that Julius is a better player overall than Karl Anthony Towns. I've seen him outplay Karl Anthony Towns in one-on-one matchups, and maybe it's because I'm old school, but I just like a big guy who plays around the paint a little bit more and plays with a little bit more force. Karl Anthony Towns is a little bit more of a finesse player, obviously a much, much better shooter, especially from 3, and we'll get into that a little bit more here in a second. But I just like Julius. He's my guy. I know he's had his struggles. He hasn't performed well in the playoffs. He sometimes can be somewhat inefficient and a little bit maddening with the way that he turns every layup into the hardest possible layup, but I did think he was getting a little bit better at that last year. Anyway, hold on. Julius has his warts, okay? He's got the thumbs down. That was not smart. That was not a good move, Julius. But we've moved past that. And I did think that last year, especially once we got OG and the floor opened up a little bit, we saw the best of Julius, and we saw a team that was 12-3 when we had Brunson, Julius, and OG all together, and we were beating some of the best teams in the league, including Karl Anthony Towns' Minnesota Timberwolves. And I was so excited to see what that could be this year. I was so disappointed that we didn't get to see it last year because, Jaime Jaquez and like a typical Miami Heat player did some dirty shit and took my guy Julius out, tore up his shoulder. And I was really, really, really looking forward to seeing all of this with the addition of Mikal Bridges. So bullish on the Knicks. Let's be real, I'm always going to be a little bit bullish on the Knicks, but I felt like I had a real reason to be, and everywhere you look in all the power rankings that ranked in the top 5, you think, you know what, man, we could do something this year. I didn't think we needed to do anything. I loved how deep we were. And then I get that notification. I immediately open up Twitter. I start to dive in. First of all, I need to verify. I need to make sure. Comes from Shams. No more Woj. Shams is the absolute pinnacle of authority when it comes to dropping a trade. I don't know what is Shams bomb. Is that what we doing now with no Woj? I'm not sure what we're gonna call it, but I do know this. It becomes very clear very soon that this is real. Okay. So as my world is just melting around me, I think the Mets right at that point gave up another run. I'm trying to process this. I'm like, yo, what? What? At that same time, of course, my phone is exploding because anybody who knows me knows that I'm Nick on Knicks. And so everybody wants to hear how I feel. I've got all these different takes coming at me, from left, from right, some right down the center. I myself have said so many times how I don't want this exact trade. This rumor wouldn't go away. That was the one thing, the one reason, and I'm pretty sure I said this to my dad at one point over on, he did this to me, was that, yo, the fact that this won't go away, there has to be something to it. You got the CP, the franchises of the world, who now he gets to take a victory lap because back in July he said, "I'm telling you, the Knicks want this guy, and it won't go away, and they like him better than Julius." He said it. He was right. I saw a guy on Twitter the other day say that he saw Chris Haynes in the street, asked him about, our center situation, and he said that, yo, man, the one dude doesn't want to be there, talking about Julius. And clearly there was more than something to this. According to Bobby Marks, it's been talked about all summer, really gained steam in the last 48 hours. And when you look at the details, not only do the Knicks give up Julius Randle, but in addition to that, they ship out Dante DiVincenzo as well. Oh man, it was like, the initial notification was like I got kicked in one nut, and then the second one was like, let's go ahead and kick the second one too. I mean, the big Ragu, the guy who came in last year and set a Knick record with 238 three-pointers made, shooting 41% on almost 9 attempts a game. Strong, scrappy defender, could put the ball on the floor. Another guy who leveled up when he got here, had the best year of his career. And honestly, for a guy who was only here on the Knicks for a year, I'm always going to remember him favorably. It's crazy to be like, oh, he's one of my favorite Knicks, but he's definitely one of my favorite Knicks in recent memory. Come on, man. The shot against Philadelphia in the playoffs, that's an all-time memory. All-time shot for the New York Knicks. I mean, he had lots of memorable moments and really stepped up this year and was thrust into a role that he had never played before, and all he did was continue to step up all year long. Love Ragu. We had to send him too? I love Julius. I think that he doesn't get the respect that he deserves around the league. I think that especially he didn't get the respect that he deserved from Knicks fans, quite frankly. But it says something to you about his trade value, the fact that we had to add in Dante DiVincenzo on one of the best contracts in the NBA to be able to get this deal done. Knicks also reportedly send a first round pick that is via Detroit. It's top 13 protected. I think I heard Bobby Marks say that, what it's going to end up probably being is a second round pick in 2027. So, what's the big deal there? I'm not losing too much sleep or thinking about that pick. But the fact that we had to add Ragu says something about the overall feeling on Julius, and that some of it is about money because Julius makes significantly less money than Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns is going to average 55 milli a year for the next 4. The last year of that contract, they're paying like 59 and change. It's almost 60. Now, I realize that I have to get out of my head of saying, oh my God, that's so much money, and realize that with the way that the cap is exploding, that may not be as big of a number as it feels like it is. But, I did also hear Bobby Marks talk about how, now We are, right firm up against the front, the first apron, which means we can't take in more salary. This deal's not done. Just right now. I literally just right now. I just got a notification. Marcus Morris and Okike, they both have been waived. Okay, so this is still fluid. Obviously, the Knicks are going to have to do some sort of manipulation of the cap. I'm definitely no capologist, so that's the best I can tell you right now. But what it really comes down to is Ragu and Julius for Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns is 1 year younger than Julius, has the big contract like we talk about, 4-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA. He won Rookie of the Year. Career averages 23 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists. He shoots 52% overall from the field and 40% from three for his career. And he shoots upwards of 5 threes a game. He's been playing power forward these last couple of years because they got Gobert, obviously. I never understood that, never thought it was a good fit. Gobert, obviously, is going to be in the paint. He's going to protect the rim. And if you look at Karl Anthony Towns' defensive numbers, prior to Gobert being there, he was averaging around a block and a half a game. And then Gobert gets there and those numbers plummet. When he on the Knicks, he will be a center. So therefore, you would hope that he would get back to that level of rim protection. And also you would hope that you get the typical Tom Thibodeau bump of rim protection, even though they were joined together back when Thibodeau was in Minnesota. That's a whole nother layer to this onion because it is pretty well reported that they didn't get along well. Okay, but I'll get into the Tibbs and the Karl Anthony Towns relationship a little bit deeper here in a bit. But I do want to talk about why I like Julius more. Just I feel like a lot of it has to do with some of just my personal bias as a basketball fan and what I typically like. I like big men that don't operate so much on the perimeter and operate a little bit more in the post and play with a little bit more force. I've seen Karl Anthony Towns, I think, sometimes kind of just settle for outside shots and not necessarily always get them in like the flow of the offense, where I don't want my big man taking 2 dribbles and pulling up for 3. And I just like Julius because of what he's meant to this franchise and this organization, and I really wanted to see us get it done with him. I've also kind of felt like Cat is kind of soft. He's always come off as kind of soft to me. And I'm talking about his basketball play. Okay. I know there's other things, especially if you get in some of the deep, dark corners of Twitter. There's a lot of talk about his zestiness per se. I don't get into that. Okay. I don't get into that. I don't care how he conducts himself, what he likes to do, wear, talk, whatever else off the floor. That's his business. I don't care. On the floor, I have sometimes seen, I feel like him just not be somebody who's forceful enough in using the fact that he's 7 feet tall. Now, we have to say that he is a much more efficient offensive player than Julius. That's not a question. Okay. His percentage wise, when you watch him in general, he does not stop the ball. He does not take as many dribbles, and he finishes more often than Julius Randle. You cannot argue those things. He's a better defender than Julius Randle. He just is. All of the metrics, metric wise, they're closer in offense metric wise than they are defensively. Defensively, the gap is pretty big. Karl Anthony Towns is a better defender than he is. And when you really, really look at fit and you look at Jalen Brunson, even though he's small, he has one of the highest drive percentages and scores as many points in the paint as just about anybody in this league. So when you look at that and the real ability to be able to play 5 high and Brunson be able to get in the paint and do his thing, Karl Anthony Towns, it's hard to argue that he's not a better fit. And I am somebody who have argued against this, and I'm still far from being sure. But when you really take my bias out of it, and when I go and I listen to people like Jason Timpf from Hoops Tonight. Go check him out on YouTube. One of the smartest basketball minds, one of the guys that I always go to for breakdowns of, the actual game, not just hot takes, but actual breakdowns of the game. And he loves the move. Basketball Reach on YouTube. Australian dude. I don't know what his name is. That's another good one. Loves the move. They talk about the pick and pop between Karl Anthony Towns and Brunson, and how hard that's going to be how hard it's going to be to guard that when you have literally two players when it comes to operating off the pick and the roll and getting into the paint and putting pressure and as far as popping and being able to shoot that both mid-range or that three-point shot. Each of them at those particular skills are top 2 to 3 in the league. So you put them together, it's going to be really tough, especially with Bridges and OG in opposite corners who can both shoot and are both long and can both do that back cut. And then you got Bridges who can operate and, create his own shot a little bit. Not a little bit. Guy scored 26 points a game one season. Man, when you look at that, and you really, really, really dive into it, you start to feel like, is he a better fit? Is this going to be something where, you look back on it in a few months and you say, hey, man, this looks pretty good. I think we might be better. You got to trust Leon Rose, right? I always say trust in Leon. He's been the Don. He's been so good so far. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that I'm wrong and giving up Julius doesn't end up being something catastrophic. And I hope that Karl Anthony Towns is able to stay on the court, though I did the math. They both average about 64 games a season over their career. But I hope Anthony Towns is able to stay healthy, and I hope that him coming home, he's a Jersey boy like myself. He's born in Metuchen. That's about 20 minutes away from where I grew up, Monroe. And, he grew up in Piscataway, went to St. Joseph's. St. Joseph's is one of the better prep schools in Jersey, both football and basketball. Other guy, Bynum went there, I think. Jay Williams went there. He's the best high school basketball player I've ever seen in my life in person, was Jay Williams when he was at St. Joe's. Like I said, man, this rumor just wouldn't go away. There was something to it. It has long been said that, he's a CAA guy, and that, Julius was a CAA guy as well. He left CAA, came back CAA, and it's always been rumored that this was going to happen. The relationship with Tibbs, that's interesting because many people have asked him about it, and he's never really said anything other than I respect him, but it's very, very well publicized that him and Tibbs didn't get along. So I would think that Leon would talk to both Tibbs, and I think that also Leon would talk to Brunson. I hope that Brunson was somewhat involved in the decision. Not like he's got a vote, and if he says no, they're gonna. But if Brunson was really feeling some type of way about not only giving up Julius, but also giving up his homie Ragu, you would think that would have an effect on the overall decision by Leon Rose. Ragu, man, it's tough to lose Ragu, man. It's tough to lose Ragu. I really, really like him. And now, first and foremost, as far as Dante DiVincenzo, there are reports coming out now that he was not fond of his new role this season. You're a guy like him. You just leveled up and you just played the most and the best that you ever have in your career. And now we bring up Mikal Bridges and I'm back to the bench. But the way I always looked at it was, hey, at the end of the day, you look at a whole season, you're probably not going to get through it without injury, right? So if you end up having somebody getting dinged up, all of a sudden he's thrust right back into a role that's more similar than last year. Fire, quick release, can pull up from deep. We that's a big miss right there. We're really going to miss Ragu. And we're a lot thinner when it comes to our guard rotation. You see that now, Tyler Kolek, you need to be ready to play and feel it. The Knicks obviously feel like he is. Deuce McBride, we need another jump from you. All right, Deuce, let's go. And you see why we went out and got a guy like Campaign. because I really am starting to believe that the Knicks were looking to get this job done this offseason no matter what. And we got to a point where it was like, okay, how about Ragu too? And they said, sure. And so we did it. Minnesota, they were hard capped. They needed to do something. And now the Knicks bring in a player who most people are going to tell you makes them better. I'm still not sure. Still very, very, very nervous about how this is going to work out. And I think another question that we have to ask is, how does this change the rotation? Who starts at the 2 guard? I think that Josh Hart will be your starting 2. I think that helps because if he starts at the 2, he can help with the rebounding. Karl Anthony Towns is a good rebounder. He was even better rebounder back before Gobert was there. And, now we have him, Hart on the floor. Bridges can rebound for his position. OG's decent. And then, we just hope that rebounding defensively, Karl Anthony Towns can step up a little bit. He's played with Tibbs before, but since Tibbs has been with the Knicks, it seems like all of the centers have a little bit of a level up. I mean, if you look at a guy like Hartenstein, the player that he was, and then the player that he became by the time he left the Knicks and got so much money that we literally, even if we wanted to, could not pay him that much. Stupid rule, by the way. Stupid that the Knicks would get a player, he would get better under the Knicks, and then when it comes to a contract time, they can't offer him as much as another team can. That makes zero sense. I don't get that at all. But anyway, yeah, man, you look how much better he got. You look at the player that he developed into, who was not known as being an excellent defender or rebounder and ended up becoming those things. And you look at the way that he was able to play with Brunson and catch the ball in the high post and some of the action that we ran away from the basket. Karl Anthony Towns is going to be able to do those things. And the ball does not stick with him. He's very decisive. He catches the ball, he swings it, he makes a move, and he can score. He's a 3-level scorer. He's arguably the best three-point shooting center of all time. I've heard multiple smart people say that in the last, 16 hours. It's going to be interesting. Cat's got to be happy. He grew up a Knicks fan. That's what I've heard. He said that before, and he's a Jersey boy, man, like myself. So he's a Knick now. I'm going to root for him. I'm sad to see Julius go. I'm sad to see Ragu go. But this is what it is. Okay? This is the life that we have chosen as Knicks fans. It's going to be a hell of a ride. We're going to see. All right, y'all. Media day on Monday. I'll come back. We'll get to see Karl Anthony Towns talk. We'll get to see what's going on. We'll get to see everybody and their reaction to it. They're all going to have a microphone in front of their face on Monday. So it's going to be very, very interesting. There's going to be a lot of people with a lot of questions. I can't wait. I'm already hyped for this season. Come on, Mets. Pull it out. Do something this weekend. All right, y'all. I'm out. Peace.